Hey everybody, welcome to week 6. So, the interesting thing is I got a note from somebody who said, I'm not someone who does stuff in order, and my feeling is do it the way you do it. I like the idea of doing it in order because it builds on itself, but I also understand what it's like to kind of go, I just want random. So, you know what? If you're jumping in here, great. I feel like you do this according to what works for you. Now, of course, my thing is, as the author, I'm going, you're going to miss things. But at the same time, not really. You'll get what you need. So today, as I mentioned, we are on week 6. And week 6 actually is the 5th card in the deck because remember that first week is the intro. So we're on that. Okay, so the card today is Insecurity. The Fable is Demon Red Rainbow. And as I say that to you, the quote from the Fable is, the greatest adversary is the one living inside of me. And as I say this to you, the thing I want to get, kind of underline a little bit in this conversation is that remember that the quote is the first thing I heard from the angels. So before they told me the fable, I heard the quote, or in some cases, and I'll talk about that, there were a few of my late mother's fables, and I'll talk about poems that I was pulled to pull into this, and I gave them titles. So you'll see what is happening when I get there, because there are a few in the deck. So when we look at the greatest adversary is the one living inside of me, and we look at that root chakra, it becomes that idea that we were trained to become our own worst enemy. And part of that is that I'm going to beat myself up before you can abuse me. And it's like, oh, that's not very smart, but it's the way our brain works. It's that we often will go toward a known enemy versus the possibility of a unknown friend. So when we look at that and we look at the healing of this first chakra, we can then begin to understand how we've gone through. And by the way, as you know, I'm working with a different language today. I'm working with the Spanish language. And I just think it's fun because actually the Spanish cards are bigger. It's a bigger deck. And it's the difference between, and forgive me for getting it confused, it's the difference between licensing a product and foreign rights. So foreign rights, and they're both foreign rights, but one, when they license, they do it in their own style. And when they do a run meaning another publisher. So I'll get the languaging right and I'll tell you next time. But basically this is what's called a licensing deal. And part of that is that they get the material and then they create the deck the way they want to. So if you're one of those people that I want larger cards, the Spanish cards are really cool. So we are on today, we are on the Insecurity card, and it is, as you can see, the Fable of Demon Red Rainbow. So there's a couple things I'm going to say about this. A lot of people got very scared when I first said demon, because a lot of people go, ooh, but when we use it in our casual conversation, it just even like, joking or just like that boy has a demon in him, or whatever that is, it's kind of like, it's not such a scary thing. It's just, demon, so I just don't see words necessarily as scary or description as scary. I think from doing a lot of this work, I see it as the meaning we make of it. So the meaning we make of insecurity becomes very important in this conversation because in the actual fable, this is a card where the fable is super important. Not that they all aren't, but in this one, especially if you're a creative person of some kind, of any kind, when we look at Demon Red Rainbow, it really is a story of someone who has an invention and he has an inner committee that says, it's stupid, we say, now put it away. And so he just puts it away because he thinks, they're telling him, his inner voice, right, is telling him it's stupid. So as we look at that and as we start to, if you will, make meaning of that, we start to understand that that inner voice is the one that's telling us to put things away, to not do it. What is that inner voice? Well, if we look at this as the fifth card, right? The voice, how interesting, because that's the fifth chakra, right? So we're looking at shades of, in the fifth position, this red card is going to be about communicating, just as we talked about in the other fables, like the last fable. This is going to be about the heart. So when we look at the 7 red cards, we're looking at them also as being a particular type of communication. So we're looking here at how we communicate with ourselves. Hello, most valuable. One of the beautiful things about this fable is, of course, the Great Spirit appears and says, you know, basically instructs him to mail off his invention, right? Because that was when it was written 25 years ago. So he was mailing off his invention, and he just couldn't do it. And finally, he took each step to go to the post office, and he mails it. And the reason I'm telling you, obviously you've read the fable, but if you haven't, you'll read it. And the thing that becomes important here is that when he does that, the entire journey from where he is at home to the post office becomes, the committee gets louder and louder and louder. This is stupid, throw it away, you know, you're stupid. And basically Bob, the character in the fable, says, you know what, you're right, and I'm going to do it anyway. And that's one of the most profound things, is that, you know, carrying along our own dead weight and doing it anyway, and recognizing that every step we take lessens the load. So this is really about, if we look at insecurity, and remember what I've been talking about in What Opposes Exposes, we're also looking at here the idea that what's the opposite of insecurity? Well, when I read this, when I see this card come up in a reading, I go, oh, hey, courage. Because it takes courage to walk through the things that have internally stopped us. And notice I don't say blocked, I say stopped, because there's, you know, a stop sign is a stop sign. It's not a, you can't ever cross this way. It means we stop, we pause, and we look both ways. This is what a red card is. It's a pause where we have to look and see around us what's going on, you know, looking in the rearview mirror, looking to see where we are in our environment and what's going on around us. Because remember that we are sourcing from the ground. We are sourcing up from our root chakra. Now let's take a look at the importance of some of this again. I think, you know, it's so funny. It's so funny to go, oh, Tori's tip, what does she have to say? So, and of course I said it here, the true story here is with courage. You know, this is really, and it says it here, but it's a reminder to stand tall in your life and to recognize that no matter what's happened, no matter what's going on, and I think it's in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, it says that no matter how far down the scale we've gone, we will come to see how our circumstances can basically help others. And the reason that becomes an important, if you will, mantra is that no matter where you are, yes, we look at this spiritually, and with this card, we look at what is our voice about? What kind of communication are we trying to create in our lives? Well, the thing that's most important here is that our wounding is our greatest gift. And it's funny because when I work with people and I'm, you know, teaching classes like live and one-on-one and all that, they'll say, you know, oh, I don't understand that. And I'm like, well, for example, you know, I'll just say, you know, you're probably, you know, and they've told me a little bit about their history, right? You know, their father was, one woman, her father was a heroin addict. And I said, well, you know, okay, but your grandfather, because I do a lot of the multi-generational healing, and you know, I'll say, so what'd your grandfather do? And he was he was a drug salesman, and there were things going on. And I said, well, that makes sense. And she said, what? I said, well, you're probably in the medical field. And she said, yeah. And I said, but you're not in medicine. You're probably in the holistic side and the physical therapy side. I wouldn't be surprised to see that. And she said, that's exactly where I am. So if you notice, she was in the recovery side from drugs and alcohol, but she was doing it through the body. So when I say that to you, our wounding, our parental, more our grandparent wounding has a lot to do with the way we're going to communicate in the world and really our greatest gift. And so this is about, if you look at this card and you really look at insecurity, our greatest insecurity is often the thing that people love us most for. Think about that for a minute. You know, part of this I want you to think about, and in my life, I can give you an example. Like, I was like, I can't get this out to the public. I can't let people see who I am. Oh my gosh. Then, you know, and it was like, oh, it's stupid, they say, put it away. And what if your favorite singer or your favorite writer or your favorite actor never did that? What if they listened to those voices in their head? And, you know, I was really taken the other day because I was listening to, actually Queen Latifah was talking, and I just loved listening to her energy because she just was like courageous, you know? And so when we look at people that are courageous, we know that, I want to say this to you, and what this card is about is it says they're no different from you. The difference between you and that person you admire is that they did it anyway. And so when we look at the insecurity card, you know what? You're supposed to feel insecure if you haven't been there before. You know, it's like, it's so funny. It's like, and I don't know if you relate to this, but for me, sometimes it's like, I'll get directions, you know, and they'll go, okay, go to exit 35, make a right and a right, and it's right there. And I'm like, okay. And I'm at exit 32, right? And I'm thinking, wait a minute, am I going the wrong way? And it's like, it's obvious the numbers are going up, but that's an insecurity of the brain. And why does that happen? Why does that come up? Well, your brain is always trying to protect you, and you're going to hear this more and more. So it's stupid, they say, put it away, is the idea that we have to listen to where our wounding comes from in order to stay stuck. So when we listen to it and we do it anyway, our heart grows. And look what's outside of his protection is that heart. And, you know, there's a certain amount of hearts in the deck, and this is one of them. And I think that what we're looking at here is the idea of people see your heart. Even if you're going like this and trying to protect yourself, you know, that's what intimacy is. It's into me see. It's not something you're going to get from someone else. It's what you are. You know, I think that people already see you by the time this card comes up. They already know that you're insecure about something. And the truth is that if you're insecure and beating yourself up, what difference does it make if other people do it? You know, it's like, well, at that point, you know, you're making a point. And I remember when my first book came out, and my editor said, well, where's your picture for the back of the book? I go, oh, no, I don't want my picture on the book. And they said, why not? I said, people don't know who I am. And I never put my picture on that first book, because I was so afraid that when I went out and met the public, they were going to hate me, so I didn't want them to know who I was. And when I went to my first presentation, and then the next one, people were gracious and loving and wonderful. And maybe there were one or two meanies out there, you know. My friend Radley Valentine says, well, that person's a meanie then, you know. And it's like, great. There are some meanies out there. And what I want to say about that is that I was surprised at how well I could handle the meanies and how prepared I was for it. And that's a different story. So I don't want to go off on that too much, but I want to give you some background to what this card, this Fable's about. So when we drill down, I like to say drill down, and we go deeper, look again at this week's message, or focus, sorry, this week's focus. The greatest adversary is the one living inside of me. So there's nothing out there that can really hurt me more than what's going on inside. And, you know, I think that is and listen, you know, obviously I'm talking metaphorically, you know, you understand what I'm trying to say. So the idea is, I'm talking about the things that go on in our brain. So let's take a look at, let's see. Oh, okay. Wait, okay. I want to mention one other thing, because, you know, it's so funny. I read the book too. I go, oh, really? It says that? There's a word in here that I think is very telling. It's the word anchoring. So we've anchored some challenging ideas to us. And what I'm saying is pull up the anchor and throw it on the boat, because you don't need that anchor anymore. You know, look at what you're focusing on becomes your anchor. Now let's take a look at, how's your intention doing? How are you doing with that each week? You know, and I'm saying, let's take a look at intention, because in this book, in week 6, I'm going to page 36, and first impressions, set your intention for the week. Somebody messaged me, they private messaged me through the support desk, and one of the things she said is, I just moved to the city, I'm alone, I don't know people, how can I get a group together? You know, do you have any ideas? And I thought to myself, start a meetup group. You know, let people know when you're, look at different things that are going on, happenings, metaphysical happenings. Look for a metaphysical bookstore around you and say, hey, I want to have an ongoing discussion with this. So there are things we can do to reach out to each other. Put a message on Facebook that says, I'm new to this town, does anybody know anybody who would be interested in this? So what I'm saying is, you know, when we set that intention and then we let that go, there is a gap between when we decide something, as in Demon Red Rainbow, because this is really about having something you want to create, or something that you are so insecure about because you love it so much and you want to do it and you want to connect. Well, sometimes the bridge between where we are and connecting is invisible, and we have to just keep putting it out there. And then eventually what happens is, all of a sudden someone walks up to you and it's like, oh, you know, like you'll be in a crystal shop in the town, and somebody will say, oh yeah, I'm interested in forming a group, and you'll be like, oh, well, I have this thing I want to do. So, you know, what I want to say about Demon Red Rainbow, and this is why I'm mentioning it here, is because this is really about, we can't do this work alone. I know a lot of people do a lot of work alone, and that's great, but at some point we do need to be with other people. Why do people take Oracle schools? Why do people take classes? It's because ultimately you need to be around like-minded people to create the movement and breakthroughs that come from that association. So again, let's go back to the demon. And as you know, the set your intention for the week, it says, ask yourself, if I face what I currently fear, which is blank, what could I create then? So what is your fear? What is a big fear? You know, and I think that when you look at what your fear is, and I know for me, I was looking at, gosh, you know, my fear is that I kind of don't want a relationship in my life. And I don't even want to put that out there, but it's like, kind of like, my fear is I don't want it because I don't know it, not because I don't want it. So maybe what would happen if I broke through that would be, being in the I don't know. What would happen if I went from, you know, I don't want it to, and let's go back to this, if I face what I currently fear, like I don't want it, which is not wanting a relationship, what if I faced that and said, well, I don't know if I don't want it? So sometimes going from I'm afraid of something to I don't know, I'm not sure, show me. And then what could I create? Well, the what could I create part is not the same sentence. If you look in the book, you'll see there are two different statements, which means there's a bridge. And I want you to remember that there's always an invisible bridge between where we are and the intention we seek. And, you know, when things speed up, it's because you are in that alignment. And when you are doing your purpose, which is really, you know, purpose is like, for me, so simple, because that's when I created that life purpose divination, and it became this, you know. Now I know I'm going all over the place here, but part of this is that I want you to really understand that this takes courage. This work takes courage. Being in your life takes courage. You know, somebody said to me, you know, I'm very uncomfortable in life. And I said, well, if you're uncomfortable, life might not be the best place for you. She laughed. She goes, oh my gosh, that's a saying. And I was like, you know, all of us are uncomfortable at times. So when we look at Demon Red Rainbow, it's like we all feel this. You know, the idea, and I'm going to say this to you because now I have friends that are other celebrities in my community, and I can say this to you. Everybody gets scared. You should see some of these big people that are like fetal sometimes going, I can't go out there, you know. And as their friend, I'll kick them in the ass. And as my friend, they'll kick me in the ass. And I think that's what we do for each other. that's the difference, is that we let people say to us, do it anyway. So my message to you is do it anyway. You know, they face the fear and do it anyway. It's okay if you're afraid, but you know what? You know, if you've been sitting with something for 6 years and everybody you know is going, it's so good. And I have one that I think you'll love, which is, if you're really procrastinating, just say to yourself, you know what, this is really important to procrastinate about. I'll do this tomorrow. All right, find your inspiration. You know, it's really important in this week, I think, when we look at Wednesday, to understand that if this fable is speaking to you, it means you are ready for a breakthrough. When it comes up in a reading, look at the positioning. Is this person ready for a breakthrough, or are they being held back by their own insecurity, if you will? But go deeper than insecurity. You go deeper and you find what it means for that person. So that's the key a lot of times, is that I never read what's on the card. I read what's underneath it. And what's underneath this is 100 synonyms that are going to tell me what's going on. And also reversals. Look at the antonym. Okay. I'll bring that up later. I talk about that more in that book. This book, we talk about the fables. Speaking of which, let's take a look really quick together at the Make a Connection. It's on page 37. I think that if you work with others, you'll uncover any hidden agendas that may be lurking. And this is where, you know, if you don't have a group of people, you can talk to a friend on the phone about it. You know, the most important thing, though, is you have a friend who's not going to say, well, let me tell you about that and give you all sorts of advice. You know, you don't need advice. You need someone who's going to hold space and listen. And that's the kind of person you're looking for. Because when we do this work, we just want to like hear what's going on. It's really funny. A friend of mine today, actually, I went off on something. I was like, oh, and she said, do you feel better? I go, oh, so much better. She was like, I knew you just needed to say it. I was like, yeah, now I feel better. So, you know, the thing that becomes important with Demon Red Rainbow is that remember that we're talking about roots. And when you have deep roots, your roots may grow in a very stuck energy, and energetically it can cause physical ailments. It can bring into your life more stuck energy. So look at this in terms of taking action is good for your health. So again, okay, the solo exercises is really an indication of perhaps working with yourself on it and really getting a deeper understanding of what's going on with you. And the group activity is a great way to interact with each other. And remember, you know, we have friends all over the world now. If you know, you can find somebody and say, hey, do you want to work with me on this? And you know what? They may be in another city, continent, and you can Skype them. You can FaceTime. You can Facebook. You know, there's so many things now. Okay. I want you to really take a look at both of the exercises, because sometimes the solo exercise is great for a group. And sometimes the group exercise you can do by yourself, or you can do it with one other person, or you can really do some writing around it. And I think that's very helpful. Something I didn't mention that I do want to mention is that in Demon Red Rainbow, there's more than 2 characters. Obviously there's the demon, and obviously there's Bob, but there's also, if I'm not mistaken, it's the Great Spirit, the Great Servant. He put some dreams into Bob's head to help to give Bob the courage to do what he needed to do. So when we look at those 3 characters, we also want to look at the idea that maybe you are encouraging someone to do what they need to do. And you might want to look at, if you're the encourager, what would it take if you took that energy of being the encourager and put it on you? It's like shining the light back on you. How would that shift your reality? So look at those 3 characters. Look at the demon. Are you being the demon? Are you being the one who says, oh, that's stupid, don't do that, just do this? You know, and really look at your role. You know, I had a guy come to me, this is a number of years ago, and he did not want his son to become an actor. And he was very much upset about it because his son wanted to go to, I forget it, with Northwestern or some big university that was buku bucks. And he was like, he doesn't have to go to school to be an actor. I really think he should study something else. And he was really, like intense about it. And this card came up, and in the moment I couldn't figure it out because it was like, I was using, at the time I was using the original deck. So it was like 8 or 10 years ago. And I was like, and I finally went, wait a minute, he's the demon. And I said, is there, and this was interesting because I hadn't known what he was there for. And I said, is there someone in your life that wants to do something that you're not for? And then it came out about his son. And I said, I said, his path is guided. And why did I know his path was guided? Because the great servant shows up and tells Bob, basically puts a dream in his head to make it happen. And I said, when we look, and once I told him the fable, and I said, this is the fable. This kid had a dream, Bob has a dream to do this. Your son has a dream to do this. And I said, what role are you playing? You're playing the internal naysayer. And he was like, oh my gosh. And he got it. And he got it through the fable. This is someone that wouldn't have understood that unless he saw the roles in the fable. So it's really helpful to look at the different characters in the fable and ask yourself, where am I in my life right now? Especially if this comes up in a reading, just as a thought to put that out there for you. And you do need to know that his son has since become very successful in voiceover. And I thought that was very interesting. So he's a working actor. And sometimes that happens, like, and I'll talk about that more in other fables coming up, but I really want to underline that, we don't always know what role our querent, if we're doing readings, is playing. And to do readings with this deck, they're very profound, but you really have to master a lot of the level 1. And that's kind of in this. I keep pointing the wrong thing. It's in How to Read the Cards. And the reason I'm saying that is I want to give you tidbits of that in here because I think it's very helpful to get you going, get you moving. I want to see you reading and working with this stuff for yourself right away. And that's where my enthusiasm is. So when and I'm going to pull out probably 1 or 2 exercises from that, as bonuses in this journey. But I want to kind of stay with this. I know I'm jumping ahead because I'm excited, but when we look at some of these techniques, we're going to look at going deeper and how to go deeper as well. So when you know how to go deeper and you know the various aspects, that's the game changer. Remember, this is a 5th chakra. Like, I want you to imagine that there's a window in your, let's say in your living room. And it's a red tinted window, right? And every day when the sun hits that window, you see red coming through. And then you get these little fun hanging panes of glass, right? And they're almost like a mobile. And you hang them across the window. And each one has a color, the chakra colors, red, orange, yellow. And when the red goes through the red, it's a stronger red. When it goes through the orange, it has a little bit of change to it. When it goes through the yellow, it has a little change. That's what we're talking about as we go 1 to 7 in each chakra. So we're kind of in the 5th card here in the red chakra. So that means it's going to have a little bit of a blue communication hue to it. And it becomes very important looking at how we're communicating not only to ourselves, but to others. And so that really is the secret behind Demon Red Rainbow. And of course, on the Friday, I encourage you to do the meditation. And remember, Saturday and Sunday, when you set your intention, remember to just and I would just put it on a little piece of paper, a little card or something, and just you could put it on your mirror, you could put it by your bedside, you can put it in the bathroom, as long as you can read it. Put it in a place where you're going to just see it. And if it changes or evolves, go for it. But I would keep it somewhere where you can just glance at it. And that is what I see this week for Demon Red Rainbow. Now, when we come back next week, we're going to look at, it's discovery. and that's in Spanish. There's an awful lot of letters, but that's the discovery card next week. Actually, one of my favorite fables. It is really a very powerful fable because it is sixth sense fable. It is a lot of multi-generational healing kind of work, sixth chakra, sixth sense. I know I'm kind of like, you're going, what? It doesn't matter. And the reason I'm saying it doesn't matter, if you don't get it, you're going to get it. It's more important that this stuff, you know, it's kind of like learning a language, right? When you hear that language enough, it'll start make sense to you. But at the beginning, you're going to be like, what? I have no idea what she just said. Like, and I'll get questions like, what does that mean? And I just say, it doesn't matter right now. You're going to get everything you need in the moment you need it. Just keep that faith and remember, keep the courage of Bob, and remember this week, that's Bob's character in Demon Red Rainbow. Just remember this week, you're going to look at that and you're going to really look at the courage you've had in your life and who you are today. And I'm sending you lots of blessings for the week. And I look forward to seeing you, gosh, in week 7.